evening, Ms. Mitchell.
This regular Medicine Hat City Council meeting of Monday, March 4th, 2024 is called to order at 6:30. We will begin with a moment for prayer or reflection. Thank you. The City of Medicine Hat acknowledges that we live and work on treaty territory. The city pays respects to all Indigenous peoples and honors their past, present, and future. We recognize and respect their cultural heritages and relationships to the land. First up, we have the adoption of previous council meeting minutes. And those are the minutes from the regular council meeting of February 20th, 2024. Any errors or omissions to note? Hearing none, council adopts the minutes of the February 20th, 2024 regular city council meeting as presented. Adoption of the agenda. City Clerk, you had an amendment that was necessary on the agenda, a typo, I guess.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Yeah, I'll just point out one small typographic error under Part 9 or Section 9 under the public hearing. If a person were to look down to item 9.15, the recommendation indicates the municipal address is 18 Stober Bay, but in fact it is 19 Stober Bay, and it's stated consistently elsewhere throughout, and so I just wanted to raise that and apologize for that little error. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other additions or objections?
I did have an addition, Mayor Clark. I wanted to talk about the Agenda Review Committee. And I do have 5 individuals that were okay to speak to it tonight.
So is that a notice of motion?
To speak tonight, yes, as new business.
Okay. So we will, do you have a seconder?
I'll second that.
And we will vote on the motion. And that passes. It will be added as item 11.2. Are there any council announcements? Seeing none. Next is the consent agenda. Would anyone like to pull an item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I will accept a motion.
Your worship, I'll move that council adopt the consent agenda items as presented.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we'll vote on the motion. And that's passed. Next is a public hearing, item 9.1, Bylaw 4806, to amend the land use bylaw to rezone 19 Stober Bay southeast to mixed use district. First, I'll call the hearing to order, and then administration will introduce the bylaw. That will be followed by providing the applicant with 10 minutes, maximum of 10 minutes to make a presentation to council. And council will then have an opportunity to ask questions of administration and the applicant. And then I will invite members of the public to speak before any questions from council arise out of that. So with that, I will call the public hearing for bylaw 4806 to amend the land use bylaw to rezone 19 Stober Bay Southeast to mixed use district. And we will begin with an introduction by administration. We have with us Robert Sissons, Manager of Planning and Development Services.
So thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon or evening. As mentioned, my name is Robert Sissons, and I'm here to present land use bylaw amendment application to rezone 19 Stober Bay to mixed use district. So just a bit of a brief presentation overview. I'll start with the site context and then go through some of the amendment details. Next, I'll touch on some of the financial impacts of the rezoning, and then some land use policy context and photos. So the site is located in Southlands near the northeast end of the neighborhood. The map you see highlights its location, and it's identified in the map as subject lands. The surrounding area is primarily commercial, which is depicted as the different shades of red on the map. And the surrounding area is mostly developed except for the area to the south of the site beyond Paul Stober Drive, which is vacant land currently. Running along the east edge of the Southlands neighborhood is the Trans-Canada Highway. So the land use bylaw amendment is for rezoning the subject site from highway commercial district to mixed use district. The intent of the rezoning is to accommodate a future medium density residential use, which is not allowed in the highway commercial district. The land is currently vacant and has never been developed before. The rezoning was circulated to the TCC committee, so the technical coordinating committee, for review and comments, and there was no technical concerns at this point of the rezoning in the site to mixed use district. I will just flag that electric distribution will do a further review if a development proposal comes forward to determine options based on the restrictions around electricity in the south of the city. So, City Council strategic alignment. This rezoning of the site to mixed use is to accommodate a medium density residential use is supported by Council Strategic Plan 1.9, which states to actively pursue opportunities to remove obstacles to success, innovation, and incremental development while ensuring regulatory compliance. So rezoning the site to mixed use removes those obstacles by allowing the developer to pursue residential uses and potentially commercial uses and having that coexist while still fitting in within the surrounding area. So financial impacts. So each rezoning and development decision comes with associated financial impacts. This slide just provides a bit of a comparison of various built forms and the potential financial impact a medium density residential use could have on the site. So pulling data from the tax assessment on the city website, this table shows the value per hectare of some adjacent properties to the site, as well as some comparable development types within the city. So this is determined by taking the assessed value of a site and then dividing it by the site area. So value per hectare is a tool that allows us to financially evaluate a proposed development or the potential of a development, and it creates an apples to apples comparison as it eliminates the difference between things like lot size, land use, etc. So the first 5 rows are sites around the subject site, so Volkswagen, Best Western, and specifically Best Western, Town Place Suites, and Holiday Inn Express are directly in that immediate area, as well as the Walmart nearby. So these commercial sites range from a value per hectare of 1.1 to 9.1 million, with the highest being the adjacent 5-story hotel. The last two rows are apartments that are comparable to what could be developed on the site. So a 4-story apartment in Southlands that has a value per hectare of 13.8 million, and a proposed development of a 6-story apartment, which does have its development permit, but it hasn't started construction yet. So that has a value per hectare of 19 million. And I'll note that because of the zoning, those sites, on the 2 residential sites, those sites would have more limitations on density than what 19 Stoper Bay would have. So based on that context of the surrounding area, the site has the potential to create a value significantly higher than some of the comparable developments, with the possibility of reaching an estimated 30.9 million per hectare, and this would put that site within the top 10% of all sites within the city in terms of value per hectare. So next I'll just go through some planning policies, starting with the municipal development plan. So the image you see on the screen is the urban transect model, from which the MDP, and it demonstrates the 8 different typologies we typically see within the community. So the urban transect is a tool that can be used to determine at a high level the varying built environment and characteristics which are best suited for any given area, with the aim of long-term financial sustainability. This site is identified as part of the South Urban Village, which is a major intensification node. So urban villages and corridors are generally denser areas where people tend to shop, eat, live. Condominiums, townhouses, mixed-use buildings, recreation centers, and commercial uses are typically common in these areas. And this site is located within the south residential sector of the MDP, as shown by the star on the map. So current land uses within this overall sector are mostly residential, commercial, community services, and open space. So typologies which typically apply to the sector include natural and open space, suburban, urban villages, as was previously mentioned, and special use areas. And the urban village that I referenced before is shown in the pink. And then I'll just also note that to the area to the south of that, the star, is shown in a dashed brown, is also an extension of residential land development. So under section 3.2, livable neighborhoods, guiding policy 4 discusses how clustering of compatible uses to create mixed-use urban villages is encouraged. Guiding policy 5 talks about how neighborhoods should include a variety of housing types that support shifting demographics and family structures, built forms for all ages and abilities, and a variety of income levels and ownership structures. And then the last guiding policy under this section mentions how streets should be designed through neighborhoods with a focus on facilitating multimodal transportation. So this includes separated multi-use pathways, wider boulevards, transit routes and stops, and landscaped medians. So this section in the MDP talks about establishing urban villages by increasing density in strategic locations. So guiding policy 1B states strategic locations should be transitioned into areas of denser development, and these urban villages should complement and enhance existing primary function of the locations to create multi-purpose destinations. So I think with Southlands, this area is already well established as a commercial area, and what this is doing is kind of filling in some of the surrounding edges with some residential. Depending on the context, locations, and available land, desirable additions to these villages may include mid to high-rise residential buildings. So based on the context of the area, the design and the existing uses of residential component to this area would be complementary. So all those things combined, when we look at the MDP, this proposal does align with the urban transect model, livable neighborhoods, guiding policies, and where we grow guiding policies. So the Southlands ASP, which is the next level down in statutory planning process. Was originally created in 2004, so a little bit older at this point, over 20 years, and provides for a variety of housing densities and forms within this mixed neighborhood. The map on the screen is the development concept map from the ASP and shows this area as primarily commercial, which is the purple. Section 6.2 does say, though, that residential, some of the key components of residential site selection would be including them along strategically placed sites such as collector roads or along arterial roads and near parks and recreational facilities. So these locations help to minimize traffic in lower density residential areas. The site is approximately 400 meters away from the nearest park and has access to a variety of forms of entertainment and services, including transit, which are found on nearby adjacent sites. The proposed rezoning generally aligns with what is shown on the development map, as the commercial uses under the mixed-use district allow for similar commercial development. The rezoning does provide that potential to contribute to the variety of housing densities and housing opportunities in this area while being compatible with some of the surrounding commercial uses that already exist. So lastly, for the policy section, I'll just go briefly through the regulatory aspect of the land use bylaw. So this proposal is to rezone from mixed use to accommodate a medium density residential use. And it aligns with the purpose statement of the mixed use district, and it fits in and could benefit the surrounding area. So the purpose of the district is to maintain and promote key corridors and nodes as focal points for compact mixed-use development and encourage densification that supports pedestrian and transit-oriented design. The site does meet all the requirements required within the land use bylaw for the site area. And as a quick comparison, you can see that there is a substantial amount of the listed non-residential uses that are similar between the two districts. The real main difference is that the mixed-use district does list residential uses, whereas the highway commercial district does not. So I'll just go through a couple photos of the site. So this is looking east towards Highway 1, looking north towards Town Place Suites, looking west across the site, and then looking south towards the Best Western. So this is a view of the site looking east. So the site is highlighted there in orange. This is that same view of the site looking south towards the Best Western Hotel. And then a view of the site looking west. So it is recommended through the Municipal Planning Commission that City Council approve bylaw number 4806 to rezone 19 Stober Bay Southeast to mixed use district.
Thank you. Now the applicant will have a maximum of 10 minutes to speak if they so wish. Councillor Knodel.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I just have a quick question through the chair to Manager Sissons. I understand that the rezoning element of things is separate from the development, the nature of development, and I am curious about sound complaints that have come from the other side of the highway, those that live in Ross Glen and feeling like there's not enough of a sound buffer. Now, I understand that we're not right up against the highway with this parcel of land, but as development continues in this area and is possibly residential, what kind of mitigation efforts can be applied or are in place to ensure that the people that are living in this area have a sense of peace?
So through the chair, so the distance from the site, so that'd be the furthest in this image, the top left corner of the yellow to the highway right away is about 40 meters. Okay, and then from the site itself to the actual highway is about 90 meters. So there is a fairly large distance. That being said, on the other side of the highway, there is essentially a sound berm for helping with some of the sound issues and also the visual impact of a highway. So in a larger building like this, depending on the construction methods, they can do some certain things that a typical lower density built form wouldn't do in terms of mitigating sound within the building. But there is a possibility as this area develops out further that there could be that request through to our development and infrastructure division for some sort of sound buffering as seen on the other side.
All right, now I will give an opportunity to members of the public who wish to speak. Please come down and state. Oh, okay, your name wasn't on the list. Councillor Robbins?
Sorry, Mayor Clark, I thought we were getting an applicant presentation, so I just had a couple of questions for Manager Sissons, just so I understand. You had a Southlands area structure plan map. Would you mind going back to that? I just want to make sure I understand. Yeah, perfect. So the purple is Stover Bay, and sorry, the copy I have, I zoomed in, but I couldn't tell what the brown was.
So through the chair, the brown in the attached map represents more of planned communities, typically modular manufactured communities.
So in the, it's described as modular communities, like I just can't read what the,
Yeah, and I can just point out the sites, and just keeping in mind that land uses described in an area structure plan don't always align 100% with what's in the regulatory document, which is a land use bylaw.
right.
So in this case, some of the, so for example, Meadowlark Village and Chartwell are shown kind of to the left of the red as various forms of kind of a planned site, typically consisting of manufactured and or modular. Some of them have some stick belt on site. The area to the bottom southeast is not built yet. It's still planned for future development, but it is planned for residential.
Okay, I just have two more questions, if you don't mind, Mayor.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you very much, through the chair. You mentioned that the closest park was 400 meters. Where would the park be in relation to that property?
So
Is it on this side of the highway or the other side of the
yeah.
highway?
So through the chair, if you looking at the arrow there, if you head directly south, and I actually measured today in our system, like as a person would walk it, so it's not as the crow flies, but if you kind of walk down along the side of Walmart, that's the start of the kind of that linear park system that extends all the way to Samus Heights. So that in terms of the start of the park system, it's about that distance, but then the first large major park would be a little bit further in Southlands Phase 6C.
And last question, can mixed use include a hotel?
So through the chair, yes. The developer with this rezoning going to mixed use district could theoretically propose any development that's a listed use in that district, and that does include hotels as well as multifamily developments.
I had other questions out of the briefing note. Is it okay to ask those at this time?
As long as it's, questions and not,
No, it's not commentary, no.
go ahead.
So my question two questions out of the briefing note, I'm looking in internal, external engagement considerations, and you mentioned that there'll have to be further review of electronic distribution if a project comes forward to start discussions on electrical service. So I'm just wondering why the application is now as opposed to having the answer to that question. I'm not sure you can answer that, but.
So through the chair, if I can just rephrase the question. So your question was, why did we not do an electric capacity model before the rezoning?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
That's a way better way. I should have asked the question. Thank you.
So, yeah, so typically at this point, the developer is still, we've seen a concept from them, but it's not a firmed up proposal. So once we know more, so each site, when it gets subdivided like this, they would have a certain amount of allocated power. So that would be determined. There's various different things that a developer can do to ensure that, their load essentially is reduced. So things like putting up solar panels and making it more energy efficient. So really, until we get to the more detailed development proposal stage, it's really hard for them to know, because to get to that level and do their design and everything like that takes quite a bit of financial commitment. So if they don't know if this would be supported by council, they haven't gotten to that point yet.
Okay, and last question. So you reference priority 2, neighborhood should contain a safe and efficient system of mobility, and a guiding principle 3, which you clearly know very well, separated multi-use pathways, wider boulevards, accommodation for transit routes, landscape medians. And so I'm just curious, in this particular parcel, how that would be accomplished and at whose cost?
So right now, the little roadway that extends up to where the site is, so they're basically, there's the hotel right directly on the corner there of the loop that runs through. So that's actually a major collector. So it would have a multi-use trail on that site. The adjoining Stover Bay roadway would only have a sidewalk at this point. So the trail and the sidewalk system are already there. They would just be responsible for any on-site improvements.
Thank you very much, Manager Sissons.
All right. Maybe stay close. As Caleb makes his way down, City Clerk, can you please provide the notification report?
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor Clark. So public notice of this subject bylaw was published in the Medicine Hat News on Saturday, February 10th, and 1 week later on February 17th. A notification letter related to the proposed bylaw was mailed to 27 different residents that are either adjacent to the property or within the vicinity, and that letter went out on February 7th. No written submissions were received by the deadline for inclusion in the agenda packet. However, one written submission received by email from Jana Brooks was received after the deadline, and council will recall that that was forwarded to them on March the 1st. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Orge, can you please state your first and last name for the record and whether you'll be speaking for or against the bylaw?
My name is Caleb Orge, and I'm going to be speaking for this particular bylaw. This time around, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, first off. I currently am on the AISH benefit for a longstanding disability. I have no debt. I can be covered for $60,000 in financing today, and I have $10,000 in the bank. Any housing, medium density, high density, anything like that would get me out of the rental trap and into a home today. I don't particularly care much about the need for parking or setbacks. Any kind of development that looks just like the Best Western, but is a condo that I can get into and buy with some help from my friends and family, I would do that immediately. I would pre-order that immediately. And as you saw earlier in the financial proposal, these kinds of housing developments are orders of magnitude more financially beneficial for the city than commercial spaces on a per hectare basis. Managing Director Sissons, how many floors of potential housing or hotel space could a person build in a mixed-use residential district?
Generally, you just get to speak, but I will ask the question. This is from our land use bylaw, I think.
So through the chair, on this, if it is rezoned to mixed use district, the maximum height would be 6 stories.
Thank you.
That's a lot of space to house people like me and attract people from other communities across this country to a place with great utilities, great amenities, a park a short distance away. And this time around, I did see Walmart within close walking distance. So as long as there's a good transit stop nearby, it's prime housing material. I'm an ideal customer. Please, please, I hope the developer makes something I can live in.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council? So just for a final time, if there's anyone who wishes to speak for or against this bylaw, please come down and state your name and whether you will be speaking for or against the bylaw. All right. The public hearing for bylaw 4806 to amend the land use bylaw to rezone 19 Stover Bay Southeast to mixed use district is adjourned.
So through the chair, I move that council gives second reading to bylaw 4806.
Second.
Councilor Dumanowski.
Thank you, Your Worship. I didn't have a question per se, and Councilor Knodel actually asked the question. My small, but I guess at the same time considerable concern, if I can say that, is around sound attenuation. It's no reason to not support it, but I will echo briefly what has already been said. I know the residents in the Ross Glen Taylor Turner area have raised concerns multiple times, and it seems like every few years we hear it again, about sound reverberations, if you will, off the highway. There is a berm there. I did note, and it was qualified, that there is not a berm on that side of the highway. I do have concerns that limited berm on the other side, depending on the time of the year, depending on the prevailing winds, temperature. I'm not an engineer, but all those factors do create sound at higher volumes at different times. I live in that area, so I can appreciate that. I am concerned about kind of moving ahead with the proviso that if there's a need at some future point, we will do it. I mean, we're kind of looking at economies of scale from the standpoint of investment, what kind of returns the city could have back in value per hectare, which is wonderful, actually. But if we have to start investing in critical infrastructure after the fact, the slopes and everything there would make it very challenging. Again, not an engineer, and in my opinion, quite costly. So I'm wondering if we're looking at that as kind of a factor that would count against the valuation that we would derive from that property. Again, not a reason to necessarily disagree with the development today. I think the nice thing about it is a landscape that's open and somewhat established, and anyone who's going to develop there and acquire any property there, as Caleb indicated in his statement, would certainly be well aware of it. So I do have some reservations around that, but I see the value of the mixed use and what can be derived per hectare as being valuable to obviously the area and to the city's bottom line from the standpoint of creating a bigger tax base, which is always what we're after from the standpoint of minimizing taxes. So I will support this today, but I do so with some reservation.
Councilor Sharps.
Thank you. Through the chair, I actually echo what Councillor Dumanowski was saying, but I will say that I was unaware of the situation in Ross Glen. So when I received a call from a resident, and so I drove over there, and they're probably about a block away, and it was quite impactful, the highway. So I do completely agree that I hope it's something that we as a community can look at before we put people there. However, on this particular property, I was out there and I stood on the property, and it's weird, but you cannot hear it anywhere near as much as you can hear it in Ross Glen. I don't know why. I'm not sure if the hotels are kicking that off, but it does seem so different, and there's nothing there to make it different. I thought for sure I'd stand on that property and all I could hear was the trucks going by, and I couldn't. So I will also say Walmart's in walking distance, there's 2 bus stops there, IGA's there, Sobeys is there, Dollar Store's there, Canadian Tire's there. There's a lot of things there, so it's a great amenity. I know there was concerns from the one person that submitted something about parking. Again, I drove over there, and I get it, because it's quite congested over, and there's walking doctor's offices too. But literally on the sidewalk that encompasses that area, it's 7 cars that can get there. So it's not worth not doing a development over 7 vehicles parking there. So I'm quite excited about this, and I hope that we can get this going for them, because I think this kind of is going to be a huge impact for, you know, our rentals and purchases, and I just think it's going to be really nice. And I've seen the work that developer does, so I think it'll be really well done, if it all goes well.
Seeing no further questions, we'll vote on the bylaw first. Second reading of the bylaw. That passes.
I move that council gives third and final reading to bylaw 4806, a bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to amend the land use bylaw to rezone 19 Stover Bay Southeast to mixed-use district.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing no speakers, we'll vote on third reading of bylaw 4806. And bylaw 4806 passes unanimously. Item 10, unfinished business, bylaw 4800 to amend the emergency management bylaw.
Your worship, I move that council give second reading to bylaw 4800.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Councillor Van Dyke?
Yes, thank you through the chair. My apologies as I wasn't at the last meeting and maybe this was discussed, but it is my understanding that this is just to bring it in line with the provincial standards that are being used across. And so this is just a little bit of a cleanup exercise, correct? Okay, thank you.
City Manager Mitchell?
Thank you through the chair. Yes, that's accurate, Councillor Van Dyke, and Managing Director Stouth is online if you have any more particular questions. Thank you.
Seeing no further speakers, we'll vote on second reading. And that is unanimous.
Your worship, I move that council gives third and final reading to bylaw 4800, a bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to amend the emergency management bylaw.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote on third reading of bylaw 4800 to amend the emergency management bylaw. And that's unanimous. Bylaw 4800 is passed. New business, item 11.1, bylaw 4807 to amend the procedure bylaw.
So I move that council gives first reading to bylaw 4807, a bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to amend the procedure bylaw.
I'll second.
That's first reading, so we will just vote. That's unanimous.
I move that council gives second reading to bylaw 4807.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote on second reading.
I move the council unanimously consents to have third reading of bylaw 4807 at this meeting.
I'll second.
We'll vote on the motion for unanimous consent. That's unanimous.
So I'll move that council gives third and final reading to bylaw 4807, a bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to amend the procedure bylaw.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote on third reading of bylaw 4807 to amend the procedure bylaw. And that's unanimous. Bylaw 4807 is passed. The additional item, 11.2, Agenda Review Committee for discussion. Councillor Sharps?
Thank you so much. So this I brought to the attention of council for a particular reason. Last week, we found ourselves in a situation where Mayor Clark was gone and the acting mayor couldn't attend, the deputy mayor couldn't attend. So Andy and I, who have no life, were able to jump on and Councillor Hyder was able to zoom in. But as we were going through it, we came into some technical issues, like do we have the authority, should we be able to? And I think there was some controversy as we started asking more questions, we realized there was no terms of reference. So we kind of did a little bit of scope of what everybody else in the community was, not our community, but across Alberta was doing. And it looks like majority of the agenda reviews are the mayor, deputy mayor, and the acting mayor, and that they can put delegates in, so that in case there's one or two that cannot make it, there's other individuals that can attend. So I wanted to bring that forward. I think we saw some, some potentially smoother operations could have occurred if we were better prepared to handle that and not just leave one individual from council on that. So I wanted to bring that forward and see if we could make a motion to have those terms of reference changed for the Agenda Review Committee.
So we don't have an Agenda Review Committee. We have a procedure bylaw that says that the mayor and council, so this came in during the August update. So the motion wouldn't be for terms of reference, it would be for an amendment to our procedure bylaw.
That works too. City manager, can I leave that with you to make some recommendations back to us?
We would need a motion.
Well, I'm asking if I make that motion, would that be okay with you to make it?
Through the chair, yes, we could.
Okay, thank you. Then I make that motion.
I'll second.
We're going to need the specific language of the motion.
Let's see if I can get some help here. Who wants to help me? Anybody? Darren, I'd take some help from you if you could.
So I'll state that council directs administration to come back with formulation of amended procedure bylaw that speaks directly to the personnel in regards to administration meeting.
Agenda review
An
meeting.
agenda, well, so that's just part of the duties of that, correct?
No.
No.
It's
Okay.
two separate meetings, so
Okay.
good
So the
point.
agenda review committee then?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would caution that this is why it is better to have a notice of motion so that we're not drafting on the fly, which is never good, because we would ideally like to reference the specific section of the procedure bylaw.
I understand. I guess when I see what happened last week and we have an opportunity to fix it, I'd rather just fix it than wait another 2 weeks. I'm not into this, let's wait 2 more weeks to wait 2 more weeks.
Councillor Hirsch?
So, Your Worship, I'm comfortable with the, as you mentioned, kind of legislation on the fly. Usually I am not. Why I am comfortable is that we're asking for a task to be developed in regards to the activities and amendments. And then from that point in time, there will be obviously formal request, formal adoption in terms of the terms of reference and or the procedure bylaws.
So, to be clear, are you asking for information to come back, or are you asking for amendments to come back?
I am asking for amendments to come back.
Okay, but it was Councillor Hirsch who is putting forward the motion.
I thought he was just helping me draft it.
No, yeah, exactly. So I wasn't making the motion, I was just assisting and not necessarily even a friendly amendment, just
Just helping.
Just helping.
Because I didn't
So
have it together. so.
The intention, obviously, is to, again, in support of Councillor Sharp's motion, seconded by Councillor Hyder, is to certainly look at options considered that will allow a little bit better flow in regards to when people, like myself, who was out of town, couldn't make the meeting as deputy mayor. So, thank you.
And I will say that I did have it, but I have it on I have my wrong laptop, so I do apologize, though. That's why I needed Councillor Hirsch's help here.
Any discussion?
If I could just review this to make sure it's written properly, I would appreciate that. Thank you very much. That is correct, Rondi.
Yeah, Councillor Hyder, you seconded the motion before it was written, so we'll need you to second.
I'll second it.
Discussion? Councillor Robbins?
Yes, thank you, and through the chair. I think that what I'm interested in, so I'm not going to support the motion as it's written. I'm not sure amendments to the procedure bylaw are the best practice, so I'm interested to know what other municipalities do, and if Alberta municipalities or municipal affairs has a best practice for agenda. And so that's the information I'm interested in. Once I receive the information about best practices, then I might be willing to support suggested amendments based on those practices. So it may just be the way that it's worded, but I couldn't support it as is because it's assuming that amendments should be made, and I'm not convinced they should be until I get some sense of what the best practices are in the province.
Councillor Canodal?
Thank you, Mayor Clark. My question is if the way it's written would deem all of the individuals who are noted as included always, or if it would default to deputy acting mayor if the mayor was not present, or if both of those things exist at the same time.
Are you asking? Whoever you're asking. So I can send out some information, but from what I'm reading from other communities, it's mayor, deputy mayor, and acting mayor attend, and they can delegate if they can't make it. Yeah, yeah. And I'm going to send you this little scan here.
City Manager Mitchell?
Thank you, through the chair. In response to a few of the questions, we were doing some background for the overall committee reviews, and some of the information that we found for the agenda review committee was fairly standard to have at least the mayor and the deputy mayor, but we can certainly include that with the response that comes back so council can understand what other municipalities of similar sizes are doing.
Councillor Hyder?
Thank you, through the chair. I just think that after our last meeting that we had and mayor couldn't be there, deputy mayor or acting mayor couldn't be there, I think it's only fair that there's delegates there and whoever is available. Having no one there just holds back work and holds back process. And I just think it would be a lot easier and smoother procedurally.
I don't really need to debate this, but at 11 o'clock was the time of the scheduled meeting, and I did Zoom in at that time. So I was there and did communicate that. But I recognize that we have a motion on the table, and we can vote on the motion. And that passes. Committee business, new council code of conduct bylaw, number 4805.
So I move that council gives first reading to bylaw 4805, a bylaw of the city of Medicine Hat to establish a code of conduct for members of council.
I'll second.
All right, we'll vote on first reading. and that is unanimous. The next three bylaws that we have are scheduled, we're just going to give them first reading, and they will each have a public hearing on April 8th, 2024. First up is Bylaw 4808 to amend the land use bylaw to rezone 800 block of 2nd Street Southeast as medium-density residential district.
So I move that council gives first reading to bylaw 4808 to amend the land use bylaw to rezone the 800 block of 2nd Street Southeast as medium density residential district.
Second.
We'll vote on first reading. That's unanimous. Next up is bylaw 4809 to amend the land use bylaw to rezone 830A Balmoral Street Southeast as neighborhood commercial district.
So I move that council gives first reading to bylaw 4809 to amend the land use bylaw to rezone 830A Balmoral Street Southeast as neighborhood commercial district.
Second.
We'll vote on first reading of bylaw 4809. That's unanimous. Item 12.4, bylaw 4810 to amend the land use bylaw to rezone plan 3204M, block 3, lot 37 to medium density residential district. And again, public hearing will be on April 8th, 2024.
So I move that council gives first reading to bylaw 4810 to amend the land use bylaw to rezone plan 3204M, block 3, lot 37 to medium density residential district.
I'll second.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry, I will call the vote on first reading. And that's unanimous. And with that, seeing no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Our next meeting will be on March 18th, 2024.